fucking scared.
Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night and it was so dark you couldn't see anything?
What's happening?
Terrifying, right? But what if it didn't end when a new day dawned? What if you, along with the rest of the world, had suddenly become blind? How would your everyday life change? And would we develop new technology to help us adapt? Would the world come together or crumble apart? This is What If, and here's what would happen if everyone went blind. Your eyes are the most highly developed sensory organ in your body. Sight is the most dominant of our 5 senses. It uses more of the brain than hearing, taste, touch, and smell combined. Vision is so important for interpreting our surroundings, it accounts for 90% of our brain's understanding of the external world. It's also key for communication. 65 to 95% of emotional impact in any type of communication comes from non-verbal cues, even when we're not aware of it. Facial expressions, gestures, and posture are all important ways that we communicate with each other. But what if you no longer had this important sense? How would your life change? Let's start on day 1 of this catastrophe that causes worldwide blindness. And we're talking pitch black blindness. You can't see anything. There would be complete chaos. You would have no clue what was going on, just like everyone else. The best case scenario might be you were asleep when you went blind, or at least at home on the couch. But what if you weren't? What if you were at the grocery store? What if you were driving? If you're on the road when you suddenly go blind, well, that's bad news. You and thousands, possibly millions of people would simultaneously get into car accidents. This would cause a tragic number of deaths. Emergency response, medical care, and even cleanup would be slow, since all of those activities rely heavily on sight. If you were away from home, like at the grocery store, you'd be safer, but still very scared. You and everyone else at the grocery store would be stranded for some time because, let's face it, nobody could drive. At least you'd have plenty of food. Your life, in the beginning, would be thrown into complete disarray. Commuting, working, cooking, your hobbies, everything would become much more difficult. Most likely, you would become socially isolated and lonely. Anxiety is a common side effect of failing eyesight, according to Action for Blind People. Dating, friendships, and even job interviews would change. For one thing, no one would be judged by the way they look or the color of their skin. First impressions would be based more on personality than looks. And what would the future look like? Eventually, you develop echolocation, which uses echoes and sound location to determine size, shape, and texture of objects. It's similar to how bats navigate their world. Research and development money would be poured into visual assistive technology to help improve everyday life. Self-driving cars, a machine to turn text into braille, a wearable device that detects uneven surfaces, all of these technologies would be of prime importance to get your world back to a stable state. Trains would become widely used since they're the most fully automated form of transportation. Likewise, your life would slowly get back on track. Though you might have to find a new job if you worked in the film, cosmetic, or transportation and shipping industry. Any heavily sight-based industries would take huge hits and possibly become non-existent. At least podcasts would see a growth in audience. Understanding the world only through sound, touch, and smell would be a huge obstacle for everyone. Hopefully, if everyone went blind at once, this would create a blank slate for the world to reconnect with each other. It's possible that this worldwide affliction would be so debilitating, wars would stop forever. Empathy would extend past government and geographical borders because of this shared common experience. Besides, we'd need the whole world to work together to develop visually assistive technologies as quickly as possible. We live in a world dominated by sight and visual cues. It can be difficult for anyone who's blind to navigate it, even with the help of sighted individuals around them. Luckily, scientists are making great advances in treating blindness. In 2018, the London project to cure blindness was successful in restoring limited eyesight to 2 blind patients. How? With revolutionary stem cell therapy. If this treatment continues to be promising, reversing blindness could become as commonplace as appendectomies or plastic surgery. In the meantime, diabetes, glaucoma, cataracts, and macular degeneration are all common diseases that can cause blindness. So it's very important to maintain good eye health and get your eyes checked regularly. But what if we didn't just lose sight? What if we lost our senses one after the other? But that's a story for another What If.